welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is the author of the book Businesses Don't Fail, They Commit Suicide. No other than Mr. Larry Mandelberg.
Good morning.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Larry, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yes, Daniel, I still have music in the background, just so you know. I am the child of a fifth generation family owned business that started in the mid 1850s. We were in the hides and furs business. We got involved in agricultural scrap and then automotive. I have owned 13 different businesses in my life. I've never worked for a company that I didn't own, other than in college, of course. And most of my life, I've spent trying to understand not so much how to make a business successful, because that's never been a problem for me. The problem's always been why is it that businesses fail? So I spent 23 years of my life doing primary research on why a particular segment or particular class of businesses failed. And I have been providing that research and solutions for several decades now.
Interesting indeed, Mr. Larry, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Your book title is Proactive. Businesses don't fail, they commit suicide. Can you unpack the central metaphor?
Absolutely. The concept is that when a business fails, it's because of its own fault. No business ever failed due to external factors. That's the underlying premise, which means that if no external factors can cause you to fail, the only way you fail is internally by either doing something wrong or not doing something right. Now, while I realize that suicide is not a completely accurate representation, because the businesses that fail don't necessarily want to fail, but they fail because of their own failure to do the right thing. So while they're not actively trying to destroy themselves, their own actions are actually destroying themselves. They're actually killing themselves, often unknowingly. And that's where the comment about suicide comes from.
So, you emphasize surviving success. Why is success often more dangerous phase for a business than initial struggle?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure I would agree with your premise. Your premise is that it's more dangerous when you're successful than when you're starting up. And I don't know that that's true. I think it's extremely dangerous when you start up. In fact, almost every startup that succeeds has a member of the leadership team that's been in a startup that failed before. So they have experience. It's almost impossible for a startup to succeed without having prior experience. My focus is not on startups. My focus is on successful businesses. And the problem for successful businesses is the concept of change. So as your business is successful, you're growing. The concept of success means growth, right? Otherwise, you're not successful. You're either growing your customer base, growing your product and service offering, growing your geographic reach. growing your profit, growing your revenue. There's something has to be growing. And the way you manage 10 customers is different than the way you manage 100 customers or 1,000 customers or 10,000 customers. And the way you manage 10 employees is different than the way you manage 1,000 employees. So, this concept of growth creates a need to change that the successful business leadership teams typically don't recognize and don't know how to deal with until it's too late. So what they do is they make decisions based upon their their beliefs, their assumptions, because they often haven't actually been through the experience before, so they don't know what to do, and they make bad decisions. And when those bad decisions are bad enough, it destroys the company.
Bad decision indeed. And based on your research and experience, what are the top three, five most frequent self inflicted wounds or societal behaviors businesses engage in?
Correct. That's an easy one. Not in any order of priority, but one of the most common ones is, why should we change? We've always done it this way and it's worked. Businesses tend to resist changing habits, behaviors, processes, systems that have worked in the past simply because they don't like change and the process or the system has worked. That's a really big mistake because systems are contextual. They're based upon factors beyond just the reality in the moment. In other words, one of the common things that startups used to do was they used to give away alcohol as gifts to their customers. As you get larger and continue to grow, if you continue giving alcohol to your customers as gifts, by the time you get to 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 customers, your costs for alcohol outweigh any appropriate expense for the business for marketing. It throws the balance between the marketing budget and your revenue out of whack. Had this happen with a client who had a vendor that sold beef, and he used to send very, very high quality pork out to his customers for Christmas. As they got larger, first of all, the shipping costs got overwhelming. Second of all, the costs of the beef and keeping it fresh, keeping it safe got expensive because when you ship meat halfway around the world, it has to be properly protected. And third, there's many cultures in the world that don't approve of eating beef or eating pork. So he got himself into a lot of trouble because he wasn't interested in changing. So that's the very first one. You get locked into doing things. The second is that people say, I'm not willing to change. So it's related to the first one, but it's different. Sometimes the business says, I want to change and we're going to modify this, but staff becomes very resistant. And you can also have customers become very resistant. And when that happens, you're letting your customers dictate your business practices. You're letting your employees dictate your business practices. You cannot do that. The third problem, and this is the one that is the most prevalent, is assumptions masquerading as issues. And I call it the whack-a-mole concept. It's when an organization has a problem and they try to fix it, and no matter what they do, the problem never seems to go away. And the reason that the problem doesn't go away is because the business is treating a symptom, not the core problem. And I can give you an example of that. We did some work for an organization that took in children without parents. Basically, they were either orphaned or they had run away from home or the state had taken them away from their abusive parents. And they had hired us to come in and help them improve the capacity of their social workers because they were overwhelmed. It turned out that the social workers weren't the problem. The problem was they weren't using enough of their foster families to help with the recruitment of other foster families. So when we went in and did our research, we found that they had an incredible resource that they could use to improve their capacity that they were totally ignoring, and they were blaming it on another part of the organization. So it's that this business about assumptions masquerading as issues, right? And not getting to the core problem. Those are your top three.
So, Mister, your subtitle mentions thriving in both good and bad times. How do the societal tendency differ from between economic downturns and periods of prosperity?
There are always competition for your product or service. If what you're delivering has clear value and you understand what that value is, then you can identify who sees the value in your product or services, who is willing to pay for it. This is similar to the philosophy about the stock market. You can make money in the stock market whether it goes up, whether it goes down, or whether it stays flat. It doesn't matter what the stock market does, there's always a way to make money. It's the same thing in business. What you have to do is be crystal clear about the value that you're delivering, who values that value, who values that service or that product, and make sure that you're communicating with them. Some people call it knowing your customer. The example I will give you is Disney. Disney is a classic example. That company was more dependent on large groups of people coming together in public settings than any other company on the planet. They own movie theaters and theme parks. Thousands and thousands of people coming together in tightly contained spaces doing things together. When COVID hit and those parks got shut down and those movie theaters got shut down, they were in trouble. And their stock price plummeted in 2020 because of COVID. The board, so to say, circled the wagons, did a deep dive on what their value was, determined that what they really were delivering was entertainment. So instead of focusing on theme parks and movie theaters, that's when Disney started pushing very hard for online streaming. And on a dime, by the end of 2020, that first year of COVID, they had shifted all of their energy into promoting online services, movies, TV shows, entertainment, subscription channels. And by 2021, their profits had gotten back up and they had completely reversed the stock slide. They were right back where they had started and stronger than before because they knew the value of their product. What they had to change was the manner they delivered it, right? So it's all about that clarity of purpose. What are we doing? Who is it for? Why is it valuable? How do we get it to them?
Very well said, Mr. Larry. Beautifully articulated. You talk about thriving. How critical is continuous innovation and adaptation to avoiding stagnation and suicide?
Well, your question was how critical is it? And I don't know how to answer that because there's no scale. Critical is critical, right?
Yes.
So when you say how critical is it, it's more of a dichotomous question. It's either critical or it isn't. It's absolutely critical. Innovation is absolutely critical. In the United States, Sears was a behemoth. They had been successful for over 100 years
Yes.
and they've gone bankrupt. The reason that they went bankrupt is because they failed to innovate. They said, we are not going to change what we do. We're not going to change who we do it for. and the market moved, the market went away, the market they served went away, the people they were serving wanted different things, and they just stopped buying from them. And Sears went broke. So it's absolutely critical. It's absolutely critical that you have an intimate relationship with the industry your customers live in, operate within, so that you can be aware of the trends that are happening in those industries and either shift away from those markets when you no longer have value to them, or find ways to add products and services that maintain or retain your value to those customers and those markets. So it's absolutely critical. Those are the reasons why.
Mr. Larry, as an author and as a mentor, what are your short term and long term goals?
I love that question. My short term goals are to relax, enjoy my life, and enjoy our new home, Bordeaux,
Hmm.
which is all about wine and food and enjoying life. Another short term goal is to get conversant in French. My long term goal is what I call no help wanted ads. This is my vision, my big, hairy, audacious goal. I believe that if leadership teams can learn from this research, they can build organizations where everybody that wants to work has a job that they love, and everybody that has employees loves their staff and treats them appropriately. And that creates an environment that automatically attracts the people who want to be part of your organization, and they stay there because everybody's happy. So there's no such thing as a help wanted ad. That's my long term goal.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Larry, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be an author as well as a mentor?
Well, first, let's talk about authorship. The most important thing about being an author, first of all, let me say that everybody is a writer. Everybody's a writer. Everybody's a singer. Everybody's a dancer. Everybody's a writer. Some people are better than others, but everybody's a writer. So don't be afraid of it. The most important thing for any writer is to know who they're writing for. Who is your audience? Your audience can be you. You can be writing just for yourself. You can be writing for your family. You can be writing for your children. You can be writing for your business. It doesn't matter who the who is. But if you're going to write, and you want your writing to be successful, to achieve a goal, you have to identify who you're writing to, who you're writing for. Every struggling writer I've ever spoken to, when I tell them that, they go, "Oh my God, I have no idea." And they get over their hump and they can write. In terms of mentorship, I think the most important thing I can say is that a good mentor is someone who has personal experience with the ability to share it with someone else who doesn't have that experience and needs the knowledge. Don't try to do something, don't try to be a mentor to someone where you're not qualified. If you want to be a mentor, understand your strengths, know your experience, refine your ability to communicate in a way that people can understand and appreciate, and seek out those people who need your experience to be shared with them.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. Larry, and I hope people will learn from the advice. What fundamental mindset shift do leaders need to make to move from focus purely on growth, success, to one focus on sustainable resilience and avoiding self destruction?
Well, that's another really good question, Daniel. It's a pretty simple answer, actually. It's the ability to focus on change as a positive. There's a reality that exists that's existed since the beginning of time. When the first caveman bartered with the other caveman for some food or some water, and business started happening, people want everything to stay the same. People don't like change. I know what to expect. I don't want to be surprised. And the world is in a constant state of change. And it's changing faster and faster and faster. So, what you have is what I call a universal conflict. The world insists on changing, and the world within it wants to stay static. The sooner you can embrace change as a positive thing and learn how to manage it and learn how to turn it into something positive for you, that's the mind shift you need to have. That's what you need to get to be successful in the long term.
Very well said, Mr. Larry. Very well said. How can boards of director or strong advisory structures help prevent leadership from steering the company toward suicide, especially when challenging popular but misguided decisions?
That is a question that I've never been asked in an interview. I've only been asked by boards. So I have specific contextual environments that I can speak to. I guess generally speaking, it begins by making sure you're hiring the right leadership team and that leadership team has clarity about the direction the board wants to go. The board should not be involved in tactics. The board should be involved in setting targets and setting long term strategic goals. Leadership should be involved in the pursuit of those goals and the execution of tactics to fulfill them. That requires the board to be clear and to understand where it wants to go strategically in the future. It requires them to be able to communicate that to the leadership of the operation, the tactical leadership. And it requires that the leadership have good communication with the board so that as obstacles or issues or unexpected events come up and leadership doesn't have experience, they can go to the board and ask the board for guidance. Theoretically, that board should have had some experience. But it starts with the board knowing what their role is. It's interesting that you asked this question. I was the board chair of an organization that was about a $110 million company. We had 7 board members, and we had about 550 employees, and we grew dramatically in a very short period of time. And through that period, we actually lost the the individual that was running the organization and hired someone that person hired someone that was a failure, and it almost collapsed the company. And then the board stepped in, took over, and hired a different person. And when we hired that third leader, the organization made a point of drawing a very fine line between operations and strategy. And all communications between leadership and the board went either through me and the president, or it was staff presenting information to the board as a whole. The board never presented information as a body operationally to the organization. So, part of the answer to your question is the structural manner in which boards and operations interact. Part of the answer is the board has to be able to communicate their long term vision and I'll call it general direction or destination, if you will, so that the leadership, operational leadership, has the ability to make that path. And then leadership's obligation is to maintain awareness of the board so the board knows that operations are going in a way that's achieving their goals. If I had to
Very well
take all of that
said.
and put it into one word, I would say communication.
Very well said, Mr. Larry. Very well said. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course my book 101 review in fifth season, comedy 101 in second season, and food 101 in fifth season too, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, law 101 and mental health 101. My love letters is in third season, and movie 101 review and music 101 in its fourth season. Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Larry, if listeners take away just one actionable piece of advice from your book to start making their business more resilient and less prone to suicide, what would it be?
Gain clarity of purpose. Understand why you're in business, who you're in business for, and what your value is, and stay focused on that. And you will make all the money and have all the success you can possibly handle.
Yes, people, let's learn from Mr. Larry Mandelberg. Thank you so much for sharing your book to the world. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and knowledge to the world. So, Mr. Larry, can you please invite our listeners to support your mentorship as well as your book itself?
Absolutely. Please, please, if there's anything I can do to help you, don't hesitate to reach out. My book is available on all popular platforms, and I will always be there to support you if you have any needs. Thank you, Daniel.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Larry Mandelberg because if you support him, if I said more and more and more empowering mentorship to come, more and more empowering business books to come. So, Mr. Larry, thank you so much for your time.
Merci beaucoup, Daniel. Thank you.
Au revoir. More to come, people. See you soon.